Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to another edition of WOWSA Live with our host, Ned Denison from Ireland. Ned?
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, and we have one of our great honorees, Barry Watson, on the call. Barry, I'm going to start right in, and I'm going to ask you a question. You were one of the very few people ever to break the English Channel speed record. I want to know everything about it. I want to know how you were feeling. We have this video of you returning back to your home where the entire county has turned out. And then, of course, at some point, somebody stole your record and broke it. Just bring us back to those days and what was happening with you.
Well, I never really took it seriously, but, of course, when the local town people sponsored me, put money in buckets and things like that, it became a bit more serious. And I was a good swimmer, but I never really... I've watched the Brownlee League today train, and if I'd have trained like them, and done their sessions, I would have been a lot quicker. But anyhow, what happened was the townspeople raised the money, and then off I went. I can remember it as clear as a bell. And we went down on the Friday, booked in at the lodgings. I met Harry Uffiker because he was in the same lodgings as myself. And then we got the call, both Harry and me, that we were going to swim the day after. So on the Saturday, I didn't see Harry again, but on the Saturday, we went across on the ferry, got a taxi down to Cap Greenay, and then I went into the Cap Greenay hotel, and the landlord lent me his bed, 12 o'clock, and I just slept there, and then we went down to the beach, and I think there was about 7 swimmers, including Harry and Arthur Ayres from Coventry, and we all more or less set off at the same time. But I think there was only 2 finishers that day, and I think one was Robert Cosset of France. And anyhow, I was actually going out to try and beat Commander Forsberg's record. And of course, when I got halfway across, or maybe a little bit more, they were saying, "Oh, you're in front of the world record." So I started, very amateurish, really, and I stopped every half hour for a refreshment. Anyhow, I tried my very best, and of course I did it in 9 hours 35, and I broke Brojan Dass's record by, I think it was an hour. So I was on top of the world. Yeah. And is there anything else you'd like to know about it?
Okay, so you come out in Dover. Did you go to the White Horse for a pint? Did the Queen loan you her train carriage to go back home?
I'm afraid
Tell us
not.
about the reception.
I'm afraid not. There's a little story there. I had an old Ford Popular, they call them, and on the way back home to the reception, they'd arranged this reception for me, and on the way back home it broke down. So from Northampton we had to get a taxi back to Bingley, and then of course the parade, I'd held the parade up, but everybody stayed till I arrived there, and it was just fantastic. With a marching band, and couldn't believe it. Yeah, amazing.
How many people do you think were there?
For about 5,000. They said 5,000 to 6,000, and they had big banners up on the town hall and the local swimming pool. Yeah, and it was more or less a shock. I never thought I would break the record. Yeah, and then inevitably it was broken, but I think it lasted about nearly 18 years. The France-England one, but I think the other one lasted 12. I'm not sure who broke it. It may have been Penny Dean. I don't know. And that's more or less it regarding that swim. Yeah.
So let me catch people up, because you dropped a few names there, and people may or may not be familiar with them. So Robert Cossette is also an honoree in the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame from Montreal, Canada. His daughter, Christine, swam with Steve many years back.
Wow.
You also mentioned Harry Huffaker, who's an honoree he was in Hawaii at the time, and he'll be speaking with us in a couple of days. And then finally, from perhaps another generation in another world, and we'll talk about them in a moment, is you're quite close to the Brownlee twin brothers, who are Olympic medalists in the triathlon. So you hit a couple of other honorees and then jump to modern days. You swam almost exclusively in Great Britain in the 60s and the early 70s.
It was because I didn't have a well-paid job to start with, and we found things difficult, regarding expenses, and because I wasn't sponsored all the time. Luckily, I was sponsored for my three other channel swims. But after the channel record, I was a bit silly, really. I should have maybe I did quite a bit of sprinting before I swam the channel when I broke the record. But people around me were telling me to slow down, and I didn't really like it. But there were that many different people telling me to slow down that I didn't really bother with the swim sets. And after that, and that's one big disappointment, really. But anyhow, I won the Windermere twice, and I think I won the Fleetwood to Morecambe 4 times, and that's a 16-mile swim, and I think the quickest time I did it in 4 hours 7. But
how important was the British Long Distance Swimming Association back in those days for a swimmer like you?
I was very, very lucky to be at the very first meeting. I mean, I was quite young then, and I'd probably be about 17 years old, and it was John Slater that really was the main force behind it. But of course there were Fred Ullman, channel swimmer, Eileen Fenton, I think Brenda Fisher might have been involved, and Jenny James. I can remember those names. And it was founded at Huddersfield Swimming Pool, where Fred Oldman, he was the baths manager there. And and then of course it really set off. I mean, I think at one time there'd be maybe 3 to 5 different swims around the country every week through the swim season. It was quite big. I don't think it's as big now. I know it isn't. The members, I think, I can't really remember how many members, but I do. I'm very proud to say I'm a founder member. I don't think there'll be many of them left. Yeah. No.
I think that the BLDSA has more competition now. There's more events by more organizers. Where back in the 60s, I think it was the only game in town, from what I can remember. What I can research, anyways.
Well, they had Windermere, and then of course Torbay, I think, but there were a lot of clubs that held their own championships, and I think you had a very good choice. I would say in the late 60s, it was really. I mean, I can remember going to the annual dinner at the Houses of Parliament, and it was absolutely packed. I would imagine there'd be 300 there. I mean, I think I went to the BLDSA annual dinner. Not last year, the year before, there are only about maybe 80 there. But no. I mean, it's still a good thing. But I think what's happened is a lot of these wetsuit swims are kind of taking over today, anyhow.
Yeah, I was in contact with the official recorder a couple of days ago, and he was telling me that the database of completed swims, there's 35,000 lines in the database. So every swimmer at a different event is a different line. When you were swimming back then, did you have kind of best mates in the sport, or were they kind of growling swim enemies, competitors?
Kevin Murphy, we're still very good friends. I regard him as a friend, not a competitor. I always remember in that 1966 Windermere swim, I had a bad swim really. I always remember Elaine Gray coming up to me and saying, "Barry, you must do more sprinting in your training." But people were telling me not to, anyhow, that's how it happened. But I just wish. But it was funny that Elaine actually came up to me and said, "Barry, you should do more sprinting." So, I mean, they do today, don't they? They do sets of hundreds and things like that, Sorry.
We had a couple of the elite swimmers on a couple of days ago, and Jordan Wilimowski was one of them. And these are people who are qualifying for the Olympics and perhaps getting in the finals and perhaps winning at the 800 and 1,500 meters. And their swim sets are 8, 10, 12,000 meters in a session.
Yeah.
And they are swimming hard and fast, and it's a whole different sport.
Professional though, isn't it? I mean, like in those days we I can remember working a full day and then going to the pool and thinking, we're tired and what have you. And then, of course, when I was at my quickest in '64, I did a session at the at the Lido in Bradford, and then afterwards, the baths manager there, he let me have a key, and he would be there, and that's when I was doing my sprints on the quiet, because everybody was telling me to slow down, and I didn't really agree with it. But anyhow, that's how things were. But Kevin, I've always tried to encourage Kevin. I mean, I can remember, I think it was in '67, we were, I can't remember all the competitors there, but we were the only two to finish the Loch Lomond. And I think I did it in about 12 hours odd. And I went back to the hotel. They were telling me to get back to this hotel instead of standing around on the beach, which I did. And when I was in the shower there, I thought, hey, there's that young lad, Kevin. And he's plodding away there, and there's me in the shower. So I got dressed quickly, went down to the beach and greeted him and told him how well he'd done. And I think he's always appreciated that as Kevin. I think he remembers that.
It's called being classy and being a good sportsman.
Yeah.
Do us a favor and tell us about the Windermere 1966 swim. So I want to set the stage. We had there were, 5 honorees in that swim. We had Van Scheidel from the Netherlands. We had Harry Huffaker from the U.S., Norman Trusty. There's 6 of you, Kevin Murphy, Elaine Gray, and Barry Watson. And, what was the atmosphere like? What did it feel like? And one of the reasons I want you to do it is Steve Munatonis, he became world champion at a Windermere swim a few years later. And I want a kind of comparison of the two events, what they felt like.
Well, of course. I mean, with it being an international, it was of great importance, and the old heart was pumping when you set off. But I had a bad swim that day. I didn't really enjoy it. I think 2 or 3 weeks earlier, I swum. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it in 5 hours 3, and going up going. It was 7 o'clock. It was the day of the World Cup. We all, Selwyn, a friend of mine, we watched the World Cup, and then all of a sudden, shall we go and do a Windermere? Well, when we got up there, it was 7 o'clock. When I started, it was 7 o'clock at night, and I finished just after midnight. And as we were going up, Keith Seymour, who was, he didn't know we were doing this, but Keith Seymour had a motor launch on Windermere, and he used to go up for the weekends. And he came at the side, and I was talking to him for about 5 minutes. You know, we weren't particularly trying to go quick or anything. And then, of course, it was about 12 o'clock when we were finishing. And I said, follow that light there. And we went in, and of course I went on the wrong side of the pier, so I had to swim around. So I reckon that were equivalent to about 4:50, what I did. But and I think in the international swim, although I was trying, but I don't know, I just didn't feel good. Can't remember what time I did. I think, would it be 5:15? Or something like that. I don't know. I'm just staggered by the reference to the World Cup, which had never occurred to me. So this was England's only victory in the football soccer World Cup, and most people of your generation, that would have been like one of the greatest days of their entire life. The World Cup. Forget about some swim in Windermere. I know, and then and the funny part about it was, I suppose I'd be the only person that ever swum Windermere on the day of the World Cup. But the funny thing was, we'd only a little outboard motor, and it took us 3 hours to get back down to the bottom again. So we didn't get back to Lakeside. Well, about it'd be 3 o'clock, in the morning. So
marvelous.
Yeah, lovely.
You had.
Sorry?
Steve, do you have a question?
No, go ahead.
So, Barry, you had 4 successful English Channel swims, but 3 of those times you were going for the two-way. Tell us about the conditions, the luck, the fitness.
Yes, I understand. Disappointing, really, but I haven't really. On the Thursday before I was due to go down, I'd done a good training session. I think I did a 3-mile time trial at Bingley Pool, and I did it it might have been the Lido, the Open Lido, and I did it in about 1 hour 8 minutes around that time, which wasn't too bad. And then I came back here, and I must have been feeling good, and I started gardening, and I picked this big stone up. Well, it was more than a stone, like a little boulder, and I did my shoulder in, and I didn't tell anybody. And I believe Kevin's had something like that. He's had trouble with his shoulder, and I didn't dare tell anybody. Anyhow, we went down there, and on it wasn't. I think the first leg was quite nice weather, and I'm not sure, but I think Mervyn Sharp and Philip Gallop were doing it at the same time as me, unless I've got it mixed up with another swim. And it was quite a nice day, but the only problem is my shoulder was very stiff, and I believe I was stroking at about 50, 52. And normally, when I was swimming okay, I'd be doing maybe 68, 66, 68. And anyhow, I did it one way. I can't remember the time. And we landed on some rocks. And I got hold of a rock to kind of prise myself out a bit. And it did the shoulder in properly. But I did turn around and swim back. I can't remember how many hours. But I actually did end up in hospital that time. And then after that, my swimming, my shoulder was never right after that. I suppose these days I'd have been able to get to the bottom of it. But I do know Kevin's had an operation on his shoulder.
We'll be speaking to Kevin in a couple of days. I kid him that he's had 3 pigs killed for their shoulders, and now he's got the titanium one. He is swimming a bit, but he's not done a marathon since the last operation.
It's spoilt his career, hasn't it? It's same with running. I mean, I know loads of friends, even like Alistair, when he's had a injury, and they get down in the dumps. But they've got, you see, nowadays they've got all the, top physios, top doctors, and marvellous facilities at Leeds. And
tell us about your whole experience with the Brownlees. Tell us about your experience with the Brownlees, how it started, and what you've been doing.
So, sorry, could you just say that again?
Tell us how you got involved with the Brownlee twins, brothers, I'm not sure the twins, and all of your exploits. Yes,
I've known Alistair and Johnny since they were little boys because I was a member of Bingley Harriers swimming club, and I've known loads of members there. I used to like running. I never entered a race, but I used to go out with them, on a jog and what have you. But I've known them from years, and I think, with me being fairly well known in the swimming, they've kind of, took a liking to me, and that's it really. But we are very good friends. I do go to, although with this lockdown I can't do it now, but I do go to the track sessions at Leeds and the swimming sessions. But I haven't been for a while due to this virus. Yeah, and
where were you when they won their medals, Barry?
Sorry?
Where were you when they won their Olympic medals?
Oh well, I didn't. Oh yeah, so in London we went down to see them in London, and me and Chris, a bloke called Chris Carris, is a lot younger than me. He's a good friend of theirs, and we drove down. But the Bingley Club, they had buses, and it was fantastic. And we're real lucky because they get us tickets for the stand sometimes, But I've been to London twice. One was just an ordinary ITU one, but the Olympic one, it was fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I do love triathlon. It's a lovely sport, I think. Yeah. But
are they no more famous locally than you are?
Yeah. Nationally, I would think. Oh yeah.
Just checking. Well, listen,
yeah.
listen, Barry,
I became friends with Richard Varga from Slovakia. I think he was a 1500 metre swimmer. He's the guy that comes out first in the swim part of the triathlon. He's a lovely swimmer. When you see him in the pool, I mean, he'll do 25 metres in 8 strokes, and not when he's going at speed. But I've got to know Richard very well. Yeah, from Slovakia, but he trained with the Brownlees about 3 years ago. He was based at Leeds. Yeah, I'm lucky that way. I'm only 17 miles away. Yeah.
Well, Barry, we've about reached the end of our time. I want to thank you for a couple of things. First of all, thank you for taking young Kevin Murphy under your wing. The boy hasn't done too bad in his career.
No, he's a good lad.
And the second thing is, it's not often we get to speak to somebody that shattered the English Channel record. Your legacy is well remembered. Don't worry about those doubles you didn't make. You're a speed record. Steve, why don't you turn off the tape now? We can have a chin wag with